I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
I spoke with a woman who says her SUV was stolen right out in her driveway. And when she went back to look at her Ring camera footage, hours were missing at the same time her car was stolen. And I spoke with a local technology expert who says that was not a coincidence. You see them on almost every block. A Ring or some form of doorbell camera system, the small home security device gaining significant popularity over the last decade. But as their use has grown, so has the ability of hackers.
If you're relying on wireless to be a security thing, you're looking at it wrong.
Chris Burns, the owner of Techie Gurus, says security cameras that use Wi-Fi to record are more about convenience than actual security because Wi-Fi can be easily disrupted, preventing the camera from capturing who is around your home. And criminals are catching on. A woman in Detroit found out the hard way when she says hours of her Ring camera footage were missing during the same time her blue Trailblazer was stolen from her driveway on August 14th. Similar stories popping up across the country. And Burns says he knows why.
Wireless signals are very easy to jam or block.
By using a deauthor or Wi-Fi jamming device.
Like this one right here.
A deauthor, which can be the size of an Apple Watch, will overwhelm a Wi-Fi system, forcing the doorbell camera to stop recording if you stand close enough. The accessory only costing about $10 to $50 and can be found on Amazon.
But a jammer is going to cost you maybe $150 to $1,000 depending on what you're trying to do.
And it's highly illegal, so it's more difficult to find. But a powerful jammer can prevent an entire street from recording on its doorbell security camera with the switch of a button.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And this is going to be a new special series in The Revealing called Criminal Minds. And this is episode 1 of the Criminal Minds series. And the reason it's called Criminal Minds is because we must understand the difference between the way you and I think and the way that a criminal mind thinks. And it's very important to distinguish the differences when we're talking about the crime on 1122 King Road in Moscow. The planning behind the crime, the implementation of the crime, and what actual criminals do when committing an atrocity such as this. It has long been my interpretation of the facts of this event and the surrounding events that this was caused due to close family ties of the victims in this case and what their parents were involved in. And the group of people that they were involved in, and let me be more specific when I say two groups of people. Some people get it confused when they hear me talk about the Aryan prison gangs, and they confuse it with the entire white supremacist movements. We're not talking about the white supremacist Aryan nations. We are talking specifically about two drug trafficking organizations that were operating at the time of the atrocity on King Road. The Aryan family / Omertà group that was operating out of Washington, and the Aryan Knights that operated out of Idaho. And the connection between those two specific groups, where I firmly believe the parents of the victims were part of a chain that trafficked the narcotics from Washington into Idaho, from the Aryan family to the Aryan Knights. And when law enforcement brought them into the fold and forced them to work with them to try to take down these larger groups, repercussions were necessary with a group like that, especially one that had took the pledge of Omertà. And in this first episode, we're going to discuss how a criminal mind would go about committing an atrocity such as this, and how it is different than a PhD criminology student, and the measures they would take where somebody that wasn't experienced in this world would not. And then we're going to back up everything with factual documents from the case files of those particular groups via more amazing discovery by my favorite content creator, True Crime Design. Welcome to episode 1 of the revealing series, Criminal Minds.
Burglars are now using Wi-Fi jammers to disable home security systems. Glendale is seeing a recent spike in home burglaries where this is all happening. Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez has details, plus important information to keep you safe.
You know who's knocking on the door when you see it thanks to your security camera. But what if this happens to the signal? It has, lately, in Glendale, where police share images of people using Wi-Fi blockers during a recent spike of home burglaries. Residents had security cameras, even alarms, but they were not activated.
What we later determined through our investigators were that these Wi-Fi blockers existed, and they were the cause of what was going on.
One security system installer saw a whole block get hit.
Yeah, the whole neighborhood got jammed up the whole neighborhood, the whole Wi-Fi, the whole street.
And you would think these things are difficult to find, but check this out. I just looked in my laptop and here they are for sale.
My understanding is they may not be as legal as they are portrayed on the line. They're described as something other than what they actually are.
So what are you telling people to do?
What we wanted to do is get those things hardwired.
I would always hardwire from your cameras, to your alarm system, everything.
Now, when we think about the night of the atrocity on King Road, some things have never really been able to be explained to us. That just doesn't make sense. For example, any of the vehicle sightings around the King Road neighborhood were captured on just a handful of cameras. Some of those cameras weren't even near the King Road neighborhood, such as the cameras on Indian Hills Drive. The camera footage that we've not been able to see from the A&W Root Beer gas station. The only footage that showed a vehicle clear was a vehicle going the wrong way at the wrong time on Ridge Road. None of the camera footage listed in the FBI report in the surrounding neighborhood caught clear images of the vehicle, mostly just headlights on trees. And then there is the infamous camera in the King Road neighborhood, which we know is 1112. And that one, I believe, is a little bit different. But how is it in this day and age of Ring cameras, did that entire neighborhood, how was it not able to catch the vehicle driving around on their Ring camera? There had to be more than just Paradise Drive and 1112 King Road, yet the reports are no other footage of the vehicle was ever captured. Could that have been because of a Wi-Fi jammer used by the assailants in the crime? It would certainly, as you could just see there, disable those Ring cameras that operated from Wi-Fi. But what about the camera at 1112 King Road? Why would that one have not been jammed as well? Interesting. Let's take a look at some information that might explain that.
Basically insert the memory card inside your light bulb right here, as you guys can see. So This is basically the light bulb camera. So basically on the top right here, you see the memory card slot that you can basically insert it. So guys, looking right there. Right, so basically what you need is your memory card that I have right here, and you're gonna plug it right in.
So because the light bulb camera on 1112 King Road operated with its independent power source from the light bulb socket itself, and the fact that it did not need Wi-Fi to operate its camera due to it having a SD card, it would not be affected in the way that other cameras in the area would be. However, there would be evidence that would lend to a jammer being used even with a wired signal not operating from Wi-Fi. And we must look deeper to discover if there was some type of jammer being used, and the evidence of that would present itself. Let me show you. Limitations of wired surveillance cameras. However, if the surveillance cameras are connected through cables, especially cables with shielding materials, signal jammers cannot effectively block them. Wired surveillance cameras, which are often encased in shielding layers, are not affected by signal jammers. It is important to note that there is one exception to this rule. If the signal jammer is placed in close proximity to the surveillance camera, or if its antenna is positioned near the communications cables, some interference may occur. This interference can manifest as image shaking, blurriness, flickering, or distorted audio. In extreme cases, the image may completely disappear and the audio may become indistinguishable. The severity of these interferences effects depend on factors such as the power of the signal jammer, the distance between the equipment and cables, and other environmental conditions. However, it is crucial to understand that this interference phenomenon cannot be considered as complete blocking. It falls more within the realm of electromagnetic interference. So let me ask you, in the atrocity on King Road, when talking about the 1112 King Road camera, do we have reports of audio interference, such as you see in this article, it is presented as the audio may become indistinguishable or distorted audio. In the probable cause affidavit, we read that at approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17. The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. A familiar description of distorted audio is seen in this statement. So once again, you see distorted audio would be a result of using a jammer. But it didn't just say distorted audio is all that you would find if a jammer was used. It also said that you would see distorted video. So distorted images, flickering. Do we see the result of distorted images, flickering, in any of the evidence that's been presented to us about the 1112 King Road camera? More specifically, the suspect vehicle that's captured in the King Road neighborhood during the time of the atrocity. And when you compare the video footage of the 1112 King Road camera, when suspect vehicle is not in the frames of the camera compared to when it is, I think a clear determination of jamming is seen with your own eyes. Don't believe your lying eyes, folks. For those of us that have followed this case for a long time, one of the most perplexing things that we just couldn't wrap our head around was when viewing the imagery from the 1112 camera that was provided to us prior to the new evidence coming out in this case. We viewed this imagery as a clear-cut way to identify the suspect vehicle. Look at how, vivid the detail is on all the vehicles in this image and everything else. It's clear. So a vehicle pulling through, we always assumed would be easily identified by any law enforcement, agent that was specialized in vehicle identification. And when we received the videos or the pictures of the new suspect vehicle identification by the FBI, the distorted images perplexed us and left us wondering, why are the images so bad? In direct comparison, like you see this image of suspect vehicle leaving out of the neighborhood at 4:20 and 47 seconds, you can clearly see the detail in the vehicle surrounding it. But when you look at this picture, it's as if this vehicle is operating with something else than all of the other things surrounding it. It is clearly distorted and the image is unclear, just like we would expect to see with a jammer. When looking at this photo taken at 3:56, you can clearly see the distortion of the video as it relates to the vehicle and the things surrounding it. It just didn't look normal compared to how clear the other images we received from this video were. What could have caused the distortion to the vehicles in this video? I believe what we see in those two photos are a clear indication of what it says in this article. This interference can manifest as image shaking, blurriness, and flickering, just like we see in the actual footage of the suspect vehicle on King Road. Now that's evidence for a jammer being used on the audio and video footage of everything surrounding the King Road neighborhood. But is that the only evidence we have of a jammer being used in this crime? And one has to only think about all of those calls and texts that were placed and the suspicious time frame between when the last text was sent to Maddie Mogan, or to Bethany Funk from Maddie Mogan, and the next call that was received was from Bethany Funk to Dylan Mortensen. There was a gap in time where no communications were made between 2:54 a.m. and 4:19 a.m. No 911 call was ever dialed, as far as we know. Was it possible that a 911 call could not have been made due to the jammer?
Well, a terrifying tactic. Thieves using Wi-Fi jamming devices to stop victims from using their cell phones to dial 911 before breaking into their homes.
Yeah, police say it's happening in one New Jersey town. Fox 5 Stephanie Bertini's in Florham Park with the details.
Florham Park police say a home on Lincoln Avenue was almost burglarized. A man was in his basement as he watched someone try to get in on his security camera, according to police. All of a sudden, the camera wasn't working, detectives say. When the would-be burglar noticed someone was home, he took off. The resident's cell phone also wasn't working, police say, and so he ran outside and someone called 911 for him. Police haven't caught the suspect, but they're taking to social media and warning the public a Wi-Fi jamming device was used.
It's like a cell phone blocker. You know, they scramble signals. They make it very difficult for the signal to actually function properly.
The resident's cell phone also wasn't working, police say, and so he ran outside and someone called 911 for him.
You see, when we look at what these devices are capable of, a simple handheld full band signal jammer, it will shield 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, GPS, UHF, VHF, low jack in the vehicles, and other signals. Total output power in this model here is 24 watts. Shielding radiuses can reach 2 to 25 meters, depending on the signal strength and specific environment. So they'll jam a distance anywhere from 30 feet to 300 yards. So we've got to understand the reason it's so difficult to catch real criminals. So you got to understand, when we're dealing with real criminals like committed the atrocity on King Road, the planning that went into that event, although it wouldn't take long for real criminals, it would be the type of planning that would make it very difficult to catch them. For example, they would want to establish an alibi. They would do that, for instance, like booking a plane flight to another state where you typically don't fly. But that would give them a rock solid alibi to be out of the area during the time of the atrocity. Much like we see with Mr. Gill in this case, who would be considered the number one suspect. Yet he suspiciously, during the days of the atrocity, booked a flight to Arizona from Washington to prove that it wasn't him in the area. And then you see his two associates, Cervantes and Slocum, both with their cell phones driving to Arizona, but then Slocum goes dark in California. These are the types of things real criminals would think of in advance before committing an atrocity. They would also know to use high-powered signal jammers to take care of the phone calls that may be made during the crime and also block their signal of their vehicle from all of the surrounding cameras. But that's not all. They would take it a step further. Unlike in this case, where they say Brian Kohberger drove his own car, well, real criminals would be smarter than that. They wouldn't drive their own car. They would get a car that they had never driven before to commit the atrocity. And the reason that I bring these things up is because when we apply these thoughts to the criminal organization that I believe is involved in the King Road atrocity, all the things that we would expect to see absolutely apply, and there's proof of it, and it's always right there in our face. Just like the excellent detective work of True Crime Design has revealed. Look at these new docs. When we look at the specific cell of the Aryan family that I feel like is responsible for the King Road atrocity, you'll see they're listed here as the Aryan family Omertà drug trafficking operation, the Gill cell. That cell includes Bryson, Michael Slocum, Isaac Cervantes. It also includes Michael Warren, who was just an old man I believe was taken advantage of by these other very dangerous individuals. And it's the Omertà part of the cell that should give you caution when thinking about this particular cell. What does Omertà mean?
That's what Omertà is. Don't betray the oath. Don't admit. And people don't understand what Omertà means. Everybody thinks that when you take the blood oath, you're taking an oath to lie, steal, kill, cheat. You're not taking that oath. The oath is silence. You're never even supposed to admit that the life exists. That's what Omertà is. Don't betray the oath. Don't admit that it exists.
A code of silence about criminal activity.
and a refusal to give evidence to authorities. So what exactly is that saying? Essentially, it's saying that if you belong to a criminal organization like the mafia, the sole and insular rule is that you never talk to the police. Now, something we would find interesting is that in the several hundred years of the mafia's existence, they have lasted on their rules. You also look at the criminal landscape in the world today. Everyone from terrorist groups to cartels to separatist organizations to biker gangs to street gangs, they all use the code of silence. Omertà has become something that has pervaded criminal activity, and every criminal group use it.
Violating Omertà was seen as a betrayal of one's roots, often met with the harshest consequences.
The consequences of breaking Omertà can be dire, impacting not only the informants but also their loved ones.
Now, an insight into this particular group found by True Crime Design shows us how you do not mess with these particular criminals. And you can see it says in a recorded phone conversation from Michael Slocum to Bryson Gill. Slocum says, "All right, where you at?" Gill, "I'm meeting up with somebody off 84th and Osborne." "Okay, well, if I do snatch him, where you want me to take him?" "Take him off to Mike's. Make sure he ain't got a phone. If you can, try and not say my name. Be like, 'Hey, bro, is trying to get a hold of you, but you ain't been answering the phone.' Like who? Be like, you know who. He will probably say it. You know what I mean? The only thing is I can only put him in the front seat. You know what I mean? Yeah, just keep eyes for me, and I start busting glass and see. You just gotta hang out there, bro." "Yeah, that's cool. If I can look and get some SHIT and grab a different, you know what I mean, Slocum. Yeah, I feel you." Investigators note, in this conversation, it was clear that Gill and Slocum were conspiring to kidnap another individual on December 2nd, 2022, and Slocum was going to transport that person to Michael Warren's residence in Shelton, Washington. It is also believed that the reference to making sure the person did not have a phone was to prevent that person from calling for help, or their phone being used to track their location later on. It was later learned that the person that was the intended kidnapping target was Gregory Beers, who resides at 3731 South Orchard No. 1 in Tacoma, Washington. However, on a side note, Gregory Beers was part of the organization, and when he was arrested, he refused to talk. He knew better. And it goes on to say, at approximately 10:43, Gill calls session 356, an unknown male, and has the following conversation. This conversation is condensed and paraphrased for brevity. In this call, Gill discusses jammers with an unknown male and how they are working to apparently, and it ends there. First reference to Gill and his crew, though, using jammers to commit crimes. Here's an expert from a longer conversation between Gill and an unknown individual, and you get real insight into how a real criminal mind works. Unknown individual. "Yeah, the homie has some. I'm waiting on him to bring me right now. I was going to call you if I can go check it out, but I was going to try to test it out on my car first." Gill. "Yeah, because I'm in the process of handling some dirt right now." "You're in the process of what?" "I'm in the process of handling some dirt and I need a car." "Oh, yep. I'm about to switch cars. You said you're out at work or got some dirt?" "No, I got to do some dirt. I got some SHIT. I got people watching me. You hear me now?" "Yeah. I got to do some dirt tonight, so I was trying to get back to the house right now to get a car I've never drove before so I can go handle some stuff. But if I can use that, I'd rather use that because it's quicker." Referencing, again, a jammer. You see right there, gives you some insight into how this particular group operated. They think things out. Whenever they're doing their dirt, they do things like take cars that they've never driven before, as you can see there. They take jammers with them that will help them to complete the mission that they're attempting to complete. They are well versed in setting up alibis in advance and pre-planning it to where they can't be detected. In the next episode, I will go back over the movements that I believe clearly show Mr. Slocum that evening and the movements that show what he did after that evening, all the way back to placing that white car at the home of Michael Warren until he traveled south in that vehicle to Arizona, where I believe it was ditched right on schedule in Eugene, Oregon. Now, this being one part of the operation that clearly put this process in motion. However, it was the connection from them to the Idaho group, the Aryan Knights, that really make this crime difficult to solve, because it's the intermediaries, the two organizations, and their combined efforts that I believe took down the house on King Road. Finding the players that were actually involved in that is the final challenge. What was the chain link from the Aryan family Omertà group to the Aryan Knights of Idaho? It goes straight through Farley, Rhodes, Burroughs to the Aryan Knights. And we know now that there was a suspicious person living in the home at 1122 King Road. Her boyfriend's father was an Aryan Knight. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Thank you for watching episode 1 of Criminal Minds. And until next time, Pavarotti's out.
Oh, gonna give it a shot. Only